Okay, let's dive right in. We're looking at a really quite an incredible story today.
Yeah, almost unbelievable if it wasn't actually happening right now.
Exactly. It's about Muhammad Yunus, the Nobel winner, the banker to the poor.
Founder of Grameen Bank, microcredit pioneer, a huge name in social enterprise.
Right. But his life, well, it's taken this wild turn in the last year or
A
so.
massive turn. From being, targeted by the government in Bangladesh, facing hundreds of charges.
To suddenly being asked to lead the whole country as interim head of state, chief advisor, they call it.
It's whiplash, really.
Yeah.
And our main source here gives us a pretty unique look at how it all went down.
Yeah, it's a special report from the DeseretNews. Their opinion editor, Jay Evenson, actually knows Yunus personally for years, and he went to Dhaka recently.
So he's got that personal angle mixed with the on-the-ground political reality. He got firsthand insights.
So that's our mission for this deep dive. Unpack that report. Understand this crazy transition, the political chaos behind it, what Yunus is trying to do now, and, well, why should you care? Why does this matter?
Definitely. That contrast is key, right? From target to leader. It's quite something.
It really is. So before we get to the chaos, maybe let's set the stage. What was Yunus known for before all this political drama?
Well, like you said, he's globally recognized. He and Grameen Bank won the Nobel Peace Prize back in 2006.
And that was for microcredit, wasn't it? Those tiny loans to people banks wouldn't touch.
Exactly. Mostly women in deep poverty. The idea was simple. Give them a tiny bit of capital, let them start a business, keep the profits, pay back the loan, break the cycle.
And the source mentions he did other things too, like a phone company.
Yeah, a telecom company aimed at making mobile phones affordable for ordinary Bangladeshis. Again, thinking about access and opportunity.
And there's that anecdote in the report about how he met the journalist.
Oh, right. Back in '97, Yunus had literally just had eye surgery hours before they met.
And he kept saying his vision was clearing up, like minute by minute.
Yeah, and the journalist saw it as this perfect metaphor for Yunus's work, lifting the fog of poverty, helping people see a path forward.
That's powerful. But even with all this positive work, things turned sour for him politically at home.
They really did. Under the government of Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina leading up to 2024, the climate became very hostile towards him.
Hostile how? What kind of pressure was he under?
Well, the source details a whole barrage of legal attacks, accusations about his telecom company, claims it defrauded employees.
And something about a bridge project. That sounds serious.
Yeah, accusations that he somehow sabotaged World Bank funding for a major bridge. The source calls these baseless accusations.
And it wasn't just one or two things. Time magazine reported, what was it, over 200 cases?
Over 200, yeah. It just seems like an overwhelming legal assault, designed to tie him up, discredit him.
And this wasn't happening in a vacuum, was it? What was the broader political situation like?
According to the sources cited, it was pretty grim. Political opponents being arrested, reports of torture, people disappearing. It sounds like a real crackdown on dissent.
There's a quote from Aparna Roy Das from the opposition party. She basically said they lost their rights, the judiciary is controlled, only the government's voice mattered.
Yeah, paints a picture of shrinking freedoms. And it's against that background that things just exploded in July 2024.
The report says Bangladesh was coming apart while everyone was watching the Paris Olympics.
Right, the trigger was university students protesting a job quota system. Seems specific at first.
But then the government reacted really strongly.
With deadly force, according to the source. And that just poured fuel on the fire.
So the protests became much bigger. Anti-government, pro-democracy.
Exactly. It shifted fast. And tragically, the human cost was immense. Estimates mentioned are over 1,400 people killed in the streets.
Just a horrific numbers. And where was Yunus during all this?
He wasn't even in Bangladesh. He was in Paris, essentially in hiding.
Yeah, hiding.
His own colleagues were telling him not to come back. They said, "You will be put in jail," the second he landed. That's how bad it was for him personally.
Wow. So what did he do from Paris?
He made a public statement, pleaded with the world to intervene, to stop the government from killing its own people.
And he was thinking about his future potentially never going back.
Yeah, the report says he was contemplating exile, Germany, Italy, Brazil, places he could go. It really looked like his ties to Bangladesh might be cut or lead straight to a prison cell.
But then everything changed.
Suddenly, dramatically, the momentum shifted, the protests grew, the pressure mounted, and Sheikh Hasina fled the country, went to India.
The whole regime just collapsed.
Seems like it happened surprisingly fast once the tide turned. And then Yunus gets a phone call in Paris.
From who?
The student leaders, the ones who spearheaded the uprising. They called them.
What did he say? I mean, he'd always avoided politics, right?
Exactly. He told the journalist he tried to decline, saying politics wasn't his thing.
But they wouldn't take no for an answer.
Kept calling him back. Said he was urgently needed. The country had been basically rudderless for 3 days.
Wow, no government at all.
A complete power vacuum. So, faced with that, he accepted.
So he goes from potential exile, potential prisoner, to suddenly being the person asked to lead the nation out of this crisis.
It's an absolutely extraordinary turn of events.
The journalist, Evenson, went to Dhaka in February 2025.
Yeah.
What was it like? What did he see?
He paints a picture of just intensity. Dhaka is huge, 22.5 million people, incredibly crowded, dense.
Chaotic, noisy.
Definitely. High pollution, too, apparently among the world's worst. But also, somehow, full of vibrant color.
And the traffic sounds legendary.
Oh, yeah. Constant gridlock. Modern cars, rickshaws pedal, and electric, those caged three-wheeler taxis. All just crawling along, horns blaring nonstop.
Taking hours to get anywhere.
Exactly. You mentioned seeing people selling peanuts between cars, beggars at windows, just stuck in this massive jam.
And the report contrasts this with Utah, where the journalist is from. Huge economic difference.
Massive. Average monthly salary in Bangladesh around $213. In Utah, the average household income is over $130,000 a year.
Utah's economy is often ranked #1 in the U.S., right?
For like 18 years running, according to the source. But it makes a point, too. Even prosperous places like Utah have pockets of poverty. It mentions the Navajo Nation income being much lower.
So the point is, Yunus's focus on poverty is relevant everywhere, even if the scale in Bangladesh is just staggering.
Right, and his core philosophy, his ideas about how to tackle poverty, that's really key to understanding him.
This is the whole social business idea.
Exactly. Using business principles, capitalist tools, but the goal isn't profit for shareholders. It's solving a social problem. Any profit gets reinvested back into the mission.
Because he believes everyone has that spark, that born-to-be-an-entrepreneur idea.
That's his fundamental belief, and microcredit grew directly from that. He saw poor village women, like one making bamboo stools, trapped by moneylenders charging insane rates just for the raw materials. She could barely make anything for herself.
And banks wouldn't help them.
Nope. Too poor, no collateral. So Yunus thought, what if we give them tiny loans? Just enough to buy their own bamboo. They make the stool, sell it, keep the profit, pay back the small loan, and build from there.
And that became Grameen Bank.
Established in the 80s. A key innovation was the borrower groups. Women supporting each other, guaranteeing each other's loans. It fostered community and responsibility.
And it was mostly women borrowers.
Almost entirely. Yunus felt women were more likely to use the profits to benefit their families, invest in the future. Though interestingly, the journalist did note seeing some cases where women later handed the business operations to their husbands.
And this social business idea goes beyond just loans, right?
Oh, yeah. It can be applied to anything. Create a business to tackle homelessness, or make affordable, nutritious yogurt to fight malnutrition, or set up low-cost healthcare clinics. The model is flexible. The goal is always social impact, not private wealth.
Is there a specific example near Dhaka?
Yes, the Grameen Caledonian College of Nursing. It's a social business tackling a big nursing shortage. 700 students.
And there was a hospital project, too.
Right next door. The foundation was finally being laid when the journalist was there. It had been blocked for years by the old regime.
So its progress now is kind of symbolic.
Feels that way. Lamia Morsh from Yunus's office is quoted saying, basically everything they tried to do was blocked before. Now things are moving.
It's pretty amazing these social businesses even survived, let alone thrived, when Yunus himself was being targeted so heavily.
It speaks to the resilience of the model, perhaps. But now he's gone from running those specific projects to trying to run the whole country.
A country coming out of 15 years of what the source describes as autocratic rule, that's a huge leap.
And the source is clear. The paths forward are not clear. It's uncharted territory for him and for Bangladesh.
And it hasn't been smooth sailing even in these first few months, has it? There was recent tension.
Yeah, just a few weeks before the report, Yunus apparently threatened to resign.
Really? Why?
It was after the head of the military, General Wakar-uz-Zaman, gave a speech that seemed critical of the pace of reforms and the timeline for new elections.
So Yunus felt undermined.
Seems like it. But his cabinet reportedly talked him out of quitting, warning it could lead to chaos, a power vacuum. And prominent figures, like newspaper editor Mahfouz Anam, publicly urged him to stay, arguing he was essential right now.
Anam felt the country needed him to see this through.
Yeah, his quote suggested Yunus leaving would be disastrous during this fragile transition, so he stayed.
When the journalist asked Yunus what surprised him most about being in charge, what did he say?
The corruption. He said he was shocked by the extent of it and how intricate it is all over the whole government system.
Not just pockets of it, but woven through everything.
Exactly. Deeply embedded.
So what's his plan? How do you even start tackling that?
His immediate focus for the interim period is trying to reduce the opportunities for it. He wants to move more government interactions online, make things electronic.
To limit face-to-face contact where bribes can happen.
That's the idea. His advice was blunt. Avoid contact with government officials.
He knows he can't fix it all, though.
Oh, he's realistic. He said if they can just deal with maybe 10% or 15%, it will show people change is possible. It might build momentum for deeper reform later.
And a huge part of his job now is setting up elections, right? There's no parliament.
Correct. He's essentially running the country solo until elections are held. People are reportedly grateful for the restored freedom speech, assembly, but they need representation.
Is there a date for elections?
Yes. They've announced April 2026.
That's still a ways off. Is there pushback on that timing?
The source suggests some political parties, like the Bangladesh Nationalist Party, might want them sooner.
But the general feeling is that most people support Yunus taking the time needed.
That seems to be the assessment in the report. A big practical issue is just compiling a clean, reliable voter database. Apparently, that takes significant time.
And Yunus sees elections and reform as linked. You can't just have one.
Precisely. He stressed that point. You need fair, honest elections, and you need real, lasting reforms put in place beforehand or very soon after. Otherwise, the old problems just come back.
Because reforms can be easily overturned by new governments.
Exactly. So his approach is quite ambitious. He set up 15 different reform commissions.
15? On what?
Everything. Banking, the judiciary, police, education, health, even the Constitution itself. They've apparently submitted their recommendations already.
Okay, so you have recommendations. What's next? How do you make them stick?
This is where it gets interesting. His plan is to build consensus and demand commitments before the election.
Oh.
He wants to take all these reform proposals and ask every single political party to go on record individually for each one. Do you support this reform, yes or no?
Get them to sign on publicly.
Essentially, yes. If they agree, it becomes part of a July charter named after the month of the revolution. Some reforms might happen before the vote. Others would be commitments for after.
So it creates accountability?
That's the goal. If a party signs the charter saying they support, say, judicial reform, and then they win power and don't do it, Yunus's point is the people can hold them accountable. He literally said, nobody forced you to say that, but you fooled us. It empowers voters.
It's a fascinating strategy, trying to lock in change before the politics potentially gets messy again.
Yeah, trying to embed the spirit of the revolution into future governance.
And driving all this, the source suggests, is Yunus's fundamental optimism, the same belief that fueled his poverty work.
It seems so. A deep faith in people's potential, their desire to succeed and help each other. It's the same optimism that lets him believe poverty itself can be eliminated eventually.
His stated goal is ambitious. Create a new Bangladesh. We don't want to go back to the old Bangladesh.
A complete break from the past.
What about the old ruling party, the Awami League? What's their status?
They were outlawed back in May. There are ongoing investigations into alleged criminal actions during their rule. The source mentions accusations that they're spreading misinformation from exile, trying to stir up trouble.
Like inciting violence.
Specifically, claims they tried to provoke sectarian violence against the Hindu minority. Yunus blames Hasina and her followers for any ongoing mischief.
How does Yunus view the violence that did happen during the uprising?
He acknowledged it was intense for a short time, but insists it happened without his government support. He pointed to over 100 arrests his interim government has made related to that violence.
And his view on the Awami League now?
He's quoted quite strongly. Awami League is the one who created all this mess. They're hated everywhere. That reflects the sentiment the journalists seem to pick up.
Is there concern that outlawing them could backfire, cause more instability?
The view from the sources cited seems to be, no, not really. The feeling was they were going to be a destabilizing force anyway, so outlawing them pending investigation didn't change the fundamental risk much.
So looking at the big picture, it's just an immense task he's taken on.
Reforming a deeply corrupt system in just over a year, paving the way for stable democracy. It's monumental.
And he's doing this at nearly 85 years old.
Incredible energy and commitment.
If he somehow pulls this off, what's the potential impact beyond Bangladesh?
Well, the thinking is it would be huge, especially for South Asia. If Bangladesh can transition to real political freedom and make it stick, it sets a powerful example.
Showing that political freedom can lead to economic progress, better health, innovation.
That's the connection the source draws. Yeah.
Yeah.
Freedom unlocks potential in all sorts of ways.
And the journalist's final impression after spending time with Yunus.
It's quite telling. He wrote that after talking with him, you're kind of bound to believe it can happen. That optimism is infectious, apparently.
So quite a journey we've traced here. Muhammad Yunus, from being hounded by the state to being called upon to lead it in its most fragile moment.
Yeah, that arc is just extraordinary. Exile or prison 1 week, interim leader the next.
And the challenges laid out are enormous. Tackling that deep, intricate corruption, setting up genuinely fair elections, trying to make reforms that actually last past his short term.
It really highlights the weight on his shoulders. He's this non-politician driven by these ideals of social business and, well, faith in people, trying to steer a nation of over 170 million people towards a completely different future.
It certainly leaves you thinking, about how leaders sometimes emerge from the most unexpected places during times of upheaval.
Absolutely, and it raises that fundamental question, doesn't it? Can these principles that work so well, fighting poverty person by person, village by village, can they really scale up to fix the deep-seated problems of national governance, especially against such entrenched interests?
That's the big question hanging over it all. When you think about this whole story, what's the one thing that really sticks with you? What detail or idea resonates most?